Okay, I'll take over here. Thanks, Heike, for this really insightful presentation. Thanks, Janina. And thereby we also conclude the panel on the Philippines and go over to our next panel on Iraq. I'll first introduce to you Heike Wendt. Heike Wendt is a professor at the Institute of Education Research and Teacher Education at the University of Graz. Her fields of expertise are international comparative studies of educational achievement, school development research, methods, and intercultural education. And she is also involved in a really interesting project. And this is also the reason why she will speak to us today here about Iraq. The respective project is called the RAISI project. It is a cooperation of the University of Graz together with the University of Mosul and the TU Dortmund. And it seeks to build a sustainable future for Iraq, respectively, Northern Iraq. So Heike, thanks for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you very much for the invitation and opportunity to present something today. As I said, I'm Professor for Education Research. I'm not a political analyst. So what I'm going to do and what I wanted to present is that I will not share of a big picture or political analysis of the situation in Iraq, but I wanted to share with you some experience we've been having in an international partnership, maybe as an example which could serve for other university partnerships in how in times of crisis university actors can show some form of academic solidarity and be part of a positive development. I'm speaking here as the scientific leader of the Rethink Education and Science in Iraq network, which is the university partnership between Mosul University in Iraq, TU Dortmund University in Germany, and Graz University from Austria. We are a network or a group of interdisciplinary, intercultural, and international, a team of academics, and in which we come from all different kinds of scientific backgrounds and different kinds of living situations. I was supposed to give this talk today with my colleague, Professor Dr. Anwar, who's been leading the steering committee of this project with me over the last 7 years. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 weeks ago. Dr. Anwar has been a physicist, a professor for physics at the University of Mosul, and issues around the independence of science, academic freedom, dialogue, and reconciliation has been things he's been striving for, a part of his pursuing his academic career, and we are all very saddened by his loss. It's a big loss for our project, and therefore I would like also to dedicate my little presentation here today in Dr. Anwar's name, and I hope it will be inspiring for all of us to follow his legacy. I've seen that two of my colleagues from the RAISI steering committee are also here with us today in the group. Mr. Dakhil, who's working at TU Dortmund University as part of the RAISI team there, and Dr. Mohammed, who's assistant professor at the College of Education for Girls, is also here in the group, and maybe they wanted to add something and share their own perspective. Wanted to make sure, and this is a disclaimer, that in our group, we enjoy the freedom of speech, and we also enjoy multi-perspectivity, so any type of political positioning or analysis I'm taking as part of my speak are solely on my own, and I'm not speaking for any of my colleagues. If we would have invited them, they might have shared a different perspective. I'd like to talk a little bit on the role higher education institutions can take in conflict development, and we know from literature that they can rather take an ambivalent role. In peace-building literature, we find quite a common agreement that higher education institutions can contribute to peace-building, reconstruction, and democratization in post-conflict context, in training key social actors, in mediating distributional conflicts, and so on. But also, and this is what we also heard from the colleagues from the Philippines, they can also take quite a different role depending on the political context, maybe in strengthening political dominance and oppression of marginalized groups. Yeah. Academic training without professional opportunities in the country can lead to radicalization. And of course, we all know this may be a positive or negative development factors, that social struggles are often led by university graduates, but also militant groups have been led by university graduates. So here, the role of higher education and the question which role higher education institutions are taking can be ambivalent. What we for sure know, if we wanted to take on and strengthen universities as making a positive contribution towards peace building, would also have to take into account and into perspective the different challenges higher education institutions are working on in conflict and post-conflict context. Yeah? So there are maybe more difficult physical, personal, institutional, and social conditions. We often see a damage to physical infrastructure, which has quite big impact on the quality of research, but also on the quality of teaching. Damage to human infrastructure, which may be related to displacement, flight, systematic dismissal of members of certain groups, or even attack on academic groups, which in many countries and also in the context in which we are working on has led to a big phenomenon of brain drain. We see a lot of institutional challenges which are addressed in literature, and also social challenges which are making it very difficult for higher education institutions in conflict-affected regions to perform their social functions as university for research training and being a place for free dialogue and speech. We are working in the context of Mosul University, in the context of Iraq, and I would like to speak about that a little bit, because I think Mosul University here is maybe serving as a good example for the decline and destruction of universities in the Middle East. And Mosul University, since its establishment, being the second largest university in Iraq, with serving more than 40,000 students, having been a key actor. So if we're looking at Mosul University's history, you can see that it had a rather shining start in the 1970s, was among the top 25 universities in the Middle East. Many of the professors who've been appointed to serve at the university have been part of a capacity building program, being graduates from leading universities around the world, which has also led at that time to direct acceptance of graduates from Mosul University, doctoral students of newly appointed professor at top international universities. Mosul University also at that time had a lot of international staff and international connections. The Gulf War and related sanctions led to a first, what Dr. Anwar would have called, with whom I prepared this presentation together, cut off from the world. We would here see a first decline of Mosul University. There were cases of looting. Many brilliant academics left the country. We would see a decline of salaries, and most international relations of the university stopped as a direct consequence of the academic situation. The second Gulf War led to what Dr. Anwar would have called the total destruction of the university. We would have seen huge lootings. Also in that time, there were more than 300 documented assassinations of academics in Iraq, which led to a culture of threat, and also migration of further academics. We'd see an intensification of Islamic extremism, which was also felt in the university by a decline of rights for women also to work in their roles as academics, but maybe even also to study. In 2006, we would have seen, as we saw, an escalation of religious conflicts, which maybe was a third decline of Mosul University, the rise of a culture of fear, about which many colleagues are reporting, the limitations in academic and personal freedom, complete disappearance of minorities as a consequence of direct attacks, more assassinations of intellectuals by car bombs, many people, many university events, even defense for master theses and PhD theses were secret and non-public, and the culture within the university was something which by many colleagues is described as a culture of fear. Also, we would have seen that physically there was a first phase where also there were some reconstruction elements. In 2014, Mosul was invaded by Daesh. This came along with public executions of more than 3,000 people. Mosul as a city with 2 million inhabitants saw that more than half of the population left the country. The university was taken over and run by Daesh until 2017, only in some departments, but it was former graduates of the university who also took over the university leadership under the new rule of Daesh. And colleagues who were forced to stay in the city also being forced to work at the university, but also also there were members who actively supported. University in Mosul under the time of Daesh occupation was characterized by segregation of women and men, the complete change of curriculum, only running certain types of departments which were considered relevant. And it was only in 2017 where the Ministry of Higher Education, decided to withdraw the accreditation of it. Seen the burning of books, the complete destruction of the university library, destruction and looting of technology, destruction of cultural objects, military lessons, and religious indoctrinations. In 2015, Mosul University, by those colleagues who managed and decided to flee Mosul, was run in exile. The Ministry of Higher Education revoked all Mosul University statuses and permissions in Mosul University and decided to re-establish the university in what they called alternative locations in Kurdistan region. The presidency of the university running out from a hotel in Duhok city. The university has several temporary alternative locations, deciding to run undergraduate programs for 14,000 students. So the reality of many university employees who had left the country was that they were receiving their salaries and being traveling academics, meeting their students in various places all over the country in times of displacement. Liberation were quite big in 2017 and ended in October. Mosul itself as a city was destructed almost completely. 70% of the city were destructed, and the university also destructed to a high extent. The central library being completely burned down, the presidency, most infrastructure destroyed, and mines were installed all over the country. Dr. Anwar, who was our colleague with whom I prepared for this, was at that time the dean of the science colleges, and I brought you here to give some ideas what his office and his laboratory looked like when shortly after the liberation, when he had an opportunity to be one of the first people to enter university premises. And this is what the reality for most academics at Mosul University looked like after the war. There were a lot of students and academics, but also civil society actors in the times after the war who risked their lives and contributed to the re-establishment of the university. In 2018, quite early after the liberation, there was a political decision to bring people back to Mosul and opening Mosul University campus as the university being a central civil society actor, being a political decision to push people to return to Mosul. So temporary alternative locations were closed. Staff members and students had to return to Mosul in order to be able to continue their work and continue their studies, which also led to the exclusion of quite some minority students who then at that time did not have the financial means, also for whom security was not considered to be able to return back to Mosul, especially early after the liberation. Since then, reconstruction started, and the university has been working quite hard on his physical and academic reconstruction in various angles. There's been also several international actors financially supporting the physical reconstruction. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how our partnership as a very unique university partnership has been trying to support the academic reconstruction of Mosul University since 2016. Overall, we've organized several events to bring more than 3,000 students and 400 academics from 4 continents together and working together and trying to make a positive contribution to promoting reconciliation, solidarity, freedom of speech and autonomy across different disciplines, cultures, borders, for and within society. Raising Education and Science in Iraq, our partnership started in May 2016. This was when me and some colleagues from, I was at that time working at Dortmund University, were working at Duhok University, which Duhok being about 70 kilometers away from Mosul, and the border between the Kurdistan region and the territory which was occupied by Daesh being quite close, and us being lecturers at Duhok University being directly affected and aware of the situation of Mosul University. The presidency of Mosul University, the exiled presidency at that time, reached out and said that they needed some kind of international partnership, to give some recognition to the work academics were doing, displaced academics were doing, and keeping university as a central pillar of civil society alive, to create some events for people coming together and having some hope through being part of an international connections and people actually not just feeling as displaced students and academic, but also as people whose voice are heard and whose expertise is needed. So we reached out to the German Academic Exchange Service and got some money for that. And in 2017, we together designed a program and had several academics from Mosul University visiting us in Dortmund. And this at that time was the only international partnership Mosul University had. So it contributed to the re-establishment of scientific relations, enabled some global outreach, interdisciplinary dialogue between professors who themselves has been displaced, working all over a certain type of region, and having some kind of place and talking about what's happening, exchanging and discussing what university actors could do in taking more serious their role as leaders. We together decided to organize student conferences as a method to promote reconciliation through science engagement. And we organized our first conference in 2018, which was the first academic event of Mosul University after liberation, bringing together 120 students and 20 professors from different backgrounds, those who were exiled, those who stayed in Mosul, students and academics from minorities and different disciplines, discussing challenges to reconstruction and reconciliation, and together develop strategies in how academics and students could now take a more active role in rebuilding their university. As part of an article I wrote, I interviewed several actors who've been part, together with colleagues who've been part of that first conference, and I asked them what they felt was the impact of that. And here I brought you some quote in how different actors from Mosul University reflected 2 years after about this first academic conference we did. So many of them, they spoke about the importance of having places for dialogue within the university between teachers and students as being a place of healing. You would see that in the first quotes where colleagues are saying we had an opportunity to discuss problems facing our society, and also for us to feel, and this is what they said, to feel again that we are not just subjects or objects of politics, but also that we can feel as subjects and develop together strategies and how we can make a change. What was important about this first conference was that we also had students from minorities attending, especially those from the Yazidi community. And we somehow managed to a certain extent that those students felt that these conferences were a place where they could speak out. And so many of my colleagues from Mosul University would have not expected students to come from the Yazidi community. And so they felt this was maybe a first start for healing and reconciliation, and giving students from those minorities who've been especially affected by the cruelties of the genocide, to give them a forum to speak, and to speak to their former students and colleagues about that. Colleagues also felt that these conferences were important for empowerment of interdisciplinary learning and empowerment across disciplines, that they were a space for dialogue in a free atmosphere, and that they also created opportunities to reconsider roles and maybe to break out some hierarchical rules between teachers and students. Since then, we've organized 6 of these conferences and discussing under different topics, and over the years, we had more than 3,000 students of the universities participating in such activities. The last one was our first conference, which for security reasons was the first one which could be held at Mosul University. It was the first international conference in Mosul after the liberation, with more than 600 students, 150 professors working together for a week in 30 different workshops, discussing challenges to sustainable reconstruction and reconciliation. Yeah. And what was special about this conference also was that student teams were actually supported to develop big ideas into smart implementable projects. So, and actually starting and initiating change within the community. These conferences are interdisciplinary events, and they are extracurricular academic events which are open for everyone within the university and within society. Yeah. You can see here, this is the newly rebuilt theater hall of the university. This is the outside. And you can see here that these conferences create create a big opportunity for young people getting together and discussing and sharing ideas across disciplines and across backgrounds. Also, as part of our partnerships, we have been generally supported by the German Academic Exchange Service and the opportunity to create a lot of internationalization opportunities by organizing so-called intensive seminars, which are opportunities for academics of Mosul University coming for a week to Germany to see, experience and taste what research, teaching and organization at a European university looks like. This is especially important because more than 90% of all academic staff of the university have never ever been outside of their country or maybe outside of their city for all their life. Yeah. So imagine all your university professors never ever themselves have been on a plane seeing what a library in another country looking like. So this is a central pillar of our work, widening horizons There are a lot of online activities, especially during the pandemic, creating professional learning opportunities for all of the people in our network, learning together with each other about topics we consider important as current burning issues, which also need to be tackled in the region. We held academic conferences and research symposia, especially giving emerging researchers opportunities to practice a little bit, skills, getting some experiences in what it means to be part of an international community, and hopefully then with some travel experiences, some experiences of being part of academic conferences and symposia, feeling empowered to go to international conferences in the future. What's been important for us in the project over the last years is not that we just stay within our university circles, but we've been working quite a lot on creating maybe what you would call science to public events, discussing with civil society actors challenges to reconstruction and reconciliation in all three of our countries. You see here a picture of a joint exhibition we conducted in Mosul University. This is the Mosul Book Forum, a place of intellectual meetings in front of the university on Fridays where they sell books. And they're also organizing academic events. And here we together organized an exhibition where students got the opportunity to share their ideas and vision for what sustainable reconstruction of Mosul city should look like. At the same time, we held the exhibition at Graz University and having quite a nice big audience in Graz as well, sharing and being part of an international guide. We do empowerment activities for students, had a very lovely cooperation with the Sustainable Development Goals Ambassador of Graz, of the city of Graz, a group of young activists training students in Mosul to become activists and ambassadors for sustainable development goals, many of them being active and having formed their own groups in Mosul. For us, diversifying and celebrating different forms of expressions is important. So been organizing art competitions which we exhibited the work in various places with our universities, educating people in Dortmund and Austria about living realities and different perspectives of young people in Iraq, and as well having art and the value of expression celebrated in Mosul University itself. Now we've been organizing a lot of support for the library to be rebuilt, organizing training for librarians in Germany, and organizing book donations and site visits and having outreach campaigns. And our partnership grew. It's not just an activity we are doing between the three universities, but having managed to have many more universities in the region, especially in Mosul University, sharing our activities with us, and also some more universities from other parts of Germany being part of our networks. And we are always hoping for more people to be part of our community. And we do quite a lot of things to share what we are doing. To sum up, what have been strengthening factors for this type of partnerships? In our reflection, we feel, of course, there's an importance of dedication and commitment by key figures in the group. But this is maybe something which is clear. But what we realized, especially in conflict situations, the focus of science as a common core has a very big potential for doing activities together as academics, and also doing that in clear roles. We felt that institutional frames over the last years, just by being a partnership which is supported by an international organization, created some kind of access, security, and purpose, which was easier to communicate for our work, rather than us being private people wanting to do initiatives. So we felt the international framing was something very important. And we also felt that the interdisciplinary institutional governance structures we've been working on over the last years has provided a lot of security for individual actors in the group, and also is what we believe the reason why our partnership survived. However, scientists take high personal risks in organizing these partnerships. And I think this is all what you are also aware of, whereas there's a lot of security structure, maybe also for governmental or for governmental actors or actors of non-governmental organizations who are working in crisis regions. Academics do not have access to any of these and need to build those security structures through private relations. And of course, also colleagues who are working within the crisis context also take high personal risks in being associated with such a project, where our cooperation, for example, in 2015, when Mosul was still occupied, had in its title, "Let's Rethink Education and Science in Iraq After ISIS." So this was a strong political stand colleagues took, and taking personal risks. What we would wish for, and what we are advocating to get international support, is that we would wish for international organizations such as the International Science Council or UNESCO to provide some kind of legal advice to academics who are wishing to do such kind of international partnerships and supporting such international partnerships in crisis situations. We also wish to have access to security structures and financial security, and we wish there was a structure which would provide those to academics. Yeah, and we would also wish for a strengthening of the importance of such third mission activities and higher education institutions' performance indicators, because something we've been struggling with over the last years, that with a focus on indicators which are only looking at third-party funding, the amount of third-party funding, and also publication as performance indicators of institutions. Such important work in international partnerships is not acknowledged within university structures, and this is the case for us both in Iraq as it is in Germany as it is in Austria. That higher education authorities are questioning whether the work we are doing is a job of academics and universities to do, or whether that is something, which is rather considered development work, and scientists should not be acting as part of academic solidarity activities. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to having a discussion a little bit later. Before I close, I also wanted to invite my two colleagues who are also here they wanted to add something from their perspective, to please do and correct me also on things I may have said which are not correct. Thank you. So I think there's Dahir.
Thank you so much for this all explanation and giving us also for Maximiliano, also giving us the space to speak a little bit about in minority perspective, or in, I did not prepare anything, but I would say what I have experienced through RISI projects in perspective of minority. It was for me, for being with the RISI project and seeing this, as Professor Heike mentioned, Yazidi students participating in this conference. It was really something moving or emotional for me. It was really something that's after like Yazidi genocide in 2014, it was something really great to see the students again in campus. And for me, it was like first time, it's been like 10 years visiting Mosul again. I was with the last conference with the colleagues there, and to be able to walk in the campus and see Yazidi students or Christian students within the campus, it was something for me really moving. And during our conference also, like there was on one of the projects, like there was 3 girls working with one of doctors. They did a presentation about empowering women, and they brought a Yazidi activist, Nadia Murad, her picture to be within their painting, and how could, because she was escaped from ISIS, and she won a Nobel Prize Peace for Peace, and that's why they thought that could be, they are Christian and Muslim, and they brought a woman like Yazidi from the minority women to be the symbol of resilience and empowerment to be within the conference. For me, that was really something I really respect. That for me was great. And for Yazidi minority as students, it wasn't before ISIS. It wasn't from ISIS, but it was before ISIS. As my personal experience, I went to Mosul in 2011 to like postpone my study. I just graduated from high school and postponed to be a mathematician. And then I came back, like it was, we passed the checkpoint like 200 meters, and there was explosions within the checkpoint. That was for me in 2011, the last time that I visit Mosul since 2000, last March. It was really go back again to Mosul and it be kind of safe, to feel like students moving within the street of Mosul, like kind of, they feel like safe, that kind of, but still for minority, I think, and still at the university or like through this project, there is a lot they did, and always they focused on the minority to be, their voice to be heard and to be within this conference, and that's something nice. But from the side of government or what local officials do, they did not reach the point that after genocide, this to give like a safe space to the Yazidi students to be within the campus or within the region, also the Mosul region or within Nineveh Valley. And I think still it's for many Yazidis feel they are like being pushed away from the country or their area, because still about 70% of Yazidi population that live in Sinjar, they still live in IDP camps in Kurdistan region. And in many area, like even though that was a big discussion, they brought like ISIS family from Syria back to Mosul again, and they have a camps, and they didn't return the Yazidi family from Duhok to their area, and still since 2018 it's liberated, and they have like legal power there and some different kind of forces are there. There is some attention there, like within the political way, but still, I think if they want, or they could manage something to be a safe place to return back to their home and be safe. And what I can add, thank you so much again for letting me to share a little bit about what I felt and what happened during this conference. And I will share like last picture with you, if I could. From Yazidi. I cannot share. Okay. Okay, it's okay. I think only host can share it. Thanks so much again.
I don't know, Dr. Mohammed, if you also wanted to share something.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is Mohammed Nama. I am from University of Mosul. This university was distributed from ISIS. More than 70% of building was distributed. So our vision is to rethink the idea of our people. RISE is the good project to be rethink our students, even our teachers. So let me present my thanks on behalf of my colleagues or my University of Mosul to Professor Heike, to her effort to make this project, and did the everything to rebuild and rethink the higher education in Mosul University to be returned to first of university in Iraq. It's difficult to say something after her presentation and the whole presentation. So I have apology. I don't prepare any word.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Heike, for all your efforts to us. Thank you.
Well, I think
Thanks.
that's the closing for our panel. I understood there is a third one. Maybe there's opportunity for discussion. Yeah, later. I hope this served as an interesting example of what university partnerships maybe can do in conflict and not waiting until conflicts are resolved. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Heike. Thank you, Dashil, and thank you, Mohammed, for this really interesting presentation. I've been part of, I've been part of the last trip to Mosul, to the conference, and it was really impressive, especially when this initiative is an excellent example of how international cooperation can unlock the local potential that is already there and empower that. And I assure you there's an immense potential in Mosul, and it was really well kind of satisfying to see that projects, international projects, can actually work pretty well. We have so many negative examples. We heard a lot of pessimistic voices already today, but I think this is a very positive example. Well beneath, we speak often of failed states. Also today, Roy spoke about Somalia being a failed state. Iraq is often also called a failed state. But beneath the level of the state, there are so many encouraging, positive examples of how and what things can work. So thanks again. And Heike implied already that there is a Q&A session, but it's at the end of our conference. I hope, Heike, you can still make it. So let's, I'll hand over to the next panel, which is on Rojava. So please, Josef.